What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of Talking Elite Fitness. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez here with you as we wrap up the second day of competition at the North America East Semifinal. We'll also take a quick look at what's going on in South America and Africa. And to be honest with you, I had maybe 2 minutes to look at the leaderboard. I haven't paid any attention to what's going on there because I've been so just head down into the North America East Semifinal. But I don't know how it came off on TV, Tommy, but the crowd I was impressed. Like, they showed up. I think there's more people that have been here than have been in the past when we've had this event here, and looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, it definitely, like, early on, I was just trying to peek because yesterday on Friday they had an end zone look down and it stared back at the wall that had the big like Syndicate Crown banner.
That banner's
But today,
awesome.
yeah, that is a sick banner. Also, that was one of the few shirts where, like, the we would like get like the media shirts and stuff from working events.
Yeah.
The Syndicate Crown one was one of the few that Tiff was like, I want that one.
Yeah, I got the.
Yep, that's sick.
That's a cool logo.
But the crowd overall looked good. It looked like it was better. In a couple of the moments, you could hear the energy a little bit better, like particularly on some of the finishes for the men, like the finish for the men on the first one, or on the last event of the day, and then the team finale, and I think the first women's event as well.
Yeah,
So there's some good energy in the crowd, and it's good. I mean, I know there's a community event going on, so I think that's also a big key to get more people in the door and engaged. So it looked good.
Yeah, it's funny because I talked to both Adrian Bosman and Rory McKernan, who were part of that community event, and Ro came up to our perch, and I was like, "How you doing, man?" He goes, "I'm tired." He's like, "I've done 3 workouts a day," and Boz was the same way. He was moving pretty slowly, but it was fun seeing those guys. They've had a good time. But the first thing we want to talk about, because this is the big topic of conversation right now, is what happened in men's event 3, final heat between Dallin Pepper and Roman Krennikov. And we'll start at the end and kind of work our way backwards, because at the end, Roman pulls even with Dallin Pepper.
Yep.
And in real time, I did not catch this. One of the reasons being is that usually when there's a close finish like that, I look up from my monitor and watch the floor because it's much easier to see everything. So you're kind of like looking at 2 things at once.
Yep.
So I missed, like the judge, Roman hopping off the box with 2 feet, which is supposed to be a no rep. And that's what allowed him to ultimately beat Dallin across the finish line by like 7/100ths of a second. So that was the first one. That was clearly a miss. I don't know if Dallin can appeal that. Because
I don't think you can.
I don't think they can either. But I don't know that for sure. And I
don't think you can appeal other athletes' stuff. Yeah. I think, that opens up a pretty nasty can of worms.
But it was a clear miss. It should have been called.
Yeah.
And that stuff happens. It just happened. That happens in sports. Big misses in big moments. And I think overall the judging today was pretty spot on from what I was able to see on the screen. I saw some no reps get handed out. I saw some things that were clearly should have been called. Obviously, I didn't get to see everything that was going on. But that was the first one. So clearly a no rep there. But I don't know if there's any sort of remedy available for Dallin.
Yeah, that's tough. And the irony in that scenario too is that, like, Dallin got 2 no reps in the 6th round on his last box jump. That is what allowed Roman to pull even with him and get into that foot race, because Dallin had maybe a 4 to 5 second buffer before that. And those were 2 really good calls that in the moment I was like, whoa, what is that? And then I went back and watched, and it was like that. I'd have to go. I haven't been able to go back and see a good angle of Hopper's no rep that he got on the rope climb. Because it was Dallin and Hopper had pulled ahead of Roman, and they both got up to the rope at the same time. Hopper was actually a little bit ahead, and he got a no rep. It was hard for me to tell. It seemed like maybe like a pinch with the legs early.
That's usually what it is.
It's for the men particularly. That's usually what it is, because at this point. Like a lot of those top men are so proficient at leg lifts that like that getting to the cross beam isn't much of an issue. It's the timing. And then that dropped Hopper out. Dallin pulled ahead. Roman was a little bit behind. Dallin, the way they have it, you finish your last box jump on the opposite side of the box and have to run around it. He gets a no rep, has to jump over again, gets another no rep, and that's what pulled them back even in that going into the final round. Because
round, right.
For the reason in that 6th round is that you had to move your box. Well, Dallin, and I can show it here if you want.
Yeah, because when I saw it again in real time, looking at the replay, I was like, I'm not sure what the call there was. But as we were looking at it again here, it actually looks like it is the right call.
Yeah, so here, let me grab it.
Okay, so let's. All right, so we have it up on screen for people who are watching here.
Yeah, so it's going to come
at the bottom.
Yep. So on his last one coming back over here, I'm going to pause it. So his feet aren't down from the box yet, and you could even rewind it just a little bit and notice how his hand's already touching.
Yep.
So you cannot have any other object or part of your body touch the box until you're completed with the rep. So he's not done with the rep yet, and his hand is starting to move the box. It's a timing thing too.
That's a good call because, like I said, I didn't see it when we looked at it again.
Like, you know, in baseball, they call it that bang bang type play, you know, with like a runner at first or at home, and the same thing happens the other direction.
Okay, so that
time his hands
and the judge is looking right at it.
Yeah, same exact thing.
That's a good call. There you go, and then he gets it right.
And even that one was that one was close too, but that was the difference. Yeah. So it was a heck of a no rep there, but
because I think the feeling is a lot of people don't know what happened there, and I was one of them trying to figure that out as we were talking about it. But now looking at it again from that angle and having the ability to slow it down, great call by the judge. By the letter, upheld the standard. And then that one with Roman was just a miss. It was a miss there at the end. And again, I don't know what the remedy for that is. Some people have suggested, well, this is why coaches need to be able to challenge. I don't know, you know, and if CrossFit is going to go back and penalize him, you know, how do you do that? Because it's not like this is a situation that we saw a few years back in the games where it was Cara Saunders finishing early and cutting reps. And then they had to go back and kind of add time to that. He did all the reps. Should have gotten a no rep. So do you go back in time what it would take him to do a box jump and add that to it? I don't.
Yeah, that this is an unfortunate gray area where I don't think you can go and be like, hey, he should have got a no rep, because then that's just gonna create just a Wild West scenario. And there's it's. Since a call didn't actually happen, this sounds weird, and this might be a little bit of like lawyer talk speak. It's in football sometimes it's like, since a call didn't actually happen on the field, there's nothing to protest. You're protesting a call that didn't happen. You know, it's
right, exactly.
It's like in basketball, there has to be a foul for you to challenge it. If the foul doesn't happen, then there's nothing to challenge, and it's weird, and maybe it's a little bit imbalanced, but I think it's just kind of the scenario. I think it would almost have to be, it would have to come from the athlete itself, similar to the team that one of the Mayhem teams that was like, hey, I got credit for
that was Training Think Tank, CrossFit Endure.
Training Think Tank. Yeah, that was like, I got credit for poundage that I didn't lift, which good on them, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because anytime you see something challenged, like you mentioned, it is because a flag or a penalty is called. It's not that there's a no call. Now we've seen that kind of a no call in sports where there's like disciplinary action for maybe a hit that took place that wasn't called at the time, and then the league reviews it, and then there's some disciplinary action that takes place after the fact. But in this case, I guess, I mean, this is, you know, the NFC Championship game, Saints Rams, where Nikel Roby-Coleman got away with pass interference. No flag was called. What do you challenge?
There's nothing
that
to challenge.
touched off a whole controversy. But it I think it's worth another look and talking about it, because yes, it was a clear no rep. And I'm glad we were able to look at Dallins again, because I didn't know what it was for.
Yeah.
But now seeing it there in the angle we just looked at again, it is clear his hands touched the box before both feet are down, and that official was right on it. That judge made the right call.
Did.
So, and in the long run, too, the good news is I don't think this is going to cost anybody a game spot, because Dallin Pepper right now is in 4th place, 252 points. And he would have missed out. He missed out on what, 3 points because of that?
Yeah. And he's he's currently 66 points ahead of Jack Rosema in 12th.
Yeah, so I'll call it the standings right now, so we can we'll take a look at these. So set the table for tomorrow. So here's the men, 11 men going. Roman Krennikov's your overall leader, 6 points over Jeff Adler. Saxon Panchik, great day for him. He's a great competition. Everything inside the top 6. He's in 3rd. Dallin Pepper in 4th. Jason Hopper in 5th. Sam Cornwallier. How about Austin Hatfield picking up his first career semifinals winning event too?
Yeah,
he's now in 7th place with 222 points. Travis Mayer sort of just Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson his way to an 8th place right now, quietly doing it. Alexander Caron, he's in a qualifying spot. Tyler Christoffel and Benoit Boulanger, pardon me, now the last man in 11th with 193 points, but only 7 points up on Jack Rosema, only 10 points up on Luke Parker, 23 up on Taylor Self, 31 up on Dre Strom. Marquand Jones is still in the hunt, because we still have half the competition to go here.
Yes, absolutely. Spencer Panchik, and I would say that, even really, you look at Spencer Panchik in 19th, about 45 points back. 52 points back of Benoit. All within range. We've seen it happen multiple times. People outside of the top 20 start to make a climb. 70 plus points was what has happened in previous weeks. Obviously, that would require some home runs. So that would bring Will Carter, even Evan Rogers, kind of into the fray a little bit. But it's like you got to start hitting some events out of the park. But like you said, there's still so much left.
Yeah. And we saw this in prior weeks. Don't get lulled into a false sense of security here when you still have 300 points on the line. Cole Sager, he said it the best last week when he said, you have to let the whole competition and the whole test express itself before you start, crowning champions and sending people to the CrossFit Games. But it should be a fun final day. And for the men, we go over to the women's side of things, and Tia Toomey's perfect, 3 for 3 so far. How about this? I don't know if you heard this on the broadcast, but her lowest event finish at the semifinals in her career is 3rd.
I heard that. I was like, that is an awesome stat. So, and this is one of those things where, like, my wife, she's interested in it. Obviously she's not like a diehard like us, but we're sitting there and, we're watching everything, and I'm like finishing making a pot of coffee and making our little pour over routine, whatever. And that stat pops up, and her ears perked up. She was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Damn!" And just like walks out of the room. And it's like, pretty much that's about all you can really say to that.
I had to triple check that. I was like, "Wow!"
And she's just in total control right now. It's weird that, like, I don't know. And I don't know if anyone was necessarily doubting Tia in this time off, but I think people were excited to see, like, all right, well, maybe what kind of version do we get back, and what is that, like, extra 6 months since we saw her Rogue, like, bring for her, and even like the de Quervain's syndrome with her wrist, and some questions around, like, her even being able to do the live announcement. Really, all that was just a setup. It's like a WWE work, where, like, it's where they come in the neck brace, and they come down the ramp, and they come in, all of a sudden they rip it off and just hit a stone cold stunner, and we're back, baby. Like, that's exactly what it is. Because the first event, even talking about how we got here so far, like, the first event where Haley started to creep up on her in the third and fourth round. And then on the fifth round, Tia just dropped the hammer and was just like, nope, this is mine.
Yep.
And separated. And then on the second event, just how that's what's crazy is Tia looked so in control, and even taking breaks on the toes to bar in the later rounds, just front squat no problem, double unders no problem, like basically blew away the rest of the field.
Yeah.
And Erica Folo deserves a ton of, or Lexi Neely
Yeah.
and Erica Folo deserve a ton of credit for being the only ones within earshot of the champ on that event. But and then like in the third event, obviously Haley overtakes Emma for the second spot, but that was almost an afterthought because it looked like Tia wasn't even concerned with the race. It was like,
No.
oh, these girls are with me now. Like, whatever. I'm just going to keep going. It was
Yeah.
almost like it was like this blasé type event win. And
Right.
that's the hallmark of what she did for the last, 6 seasons when she was winning.
The average margin of victory of the CrossFit Games of 165 points. We had this graphic that showed her dominance. I mean, and she's at it again. Emma Lawson currently sits in second, followed by Alexis Raptis, who is tied in points with Danielle Brandon. Paige Semenza is in fifth. Erica Folo, you mentioned her.
Yep.
In sixth place. Had a little bit of a hiccup in that third event. A 19th place finish that dropped her out of, I think she was in second place coming in, tied for second with Emma Lawson. Caroline Stanley's up there. Lydia Fish sits in eighth. Fisa Gaffi in a qualifying spot. Haley Adams, what a great bounce back from her. Second in event one. Then she goes out and has her worst career finish at the semifinals in event two. She takes 35th and then shakes that off, finishes second, moves up from 14th to 10th. She's got 204 points, looking good with the rest of the events coming up. Event 5 might be a little iffy for her, but the other two, she should be just fine. And now Brooke Wells sits in the final qualifying spot with 198 points, but it's super close behind her. Only 30 points separate 11th from 16th right now. So still plenty of women in contention. But Erica Folo, I think, other than Tia Toomey standing out of it, that she was not someone I was expecting to talk about that much on day number 2.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty consistent through those first two events. Now, she dropped a little bit with the higher skill stuff and the type of test that in number 3 is where there's high skill, high execution type stuff, and we've seen some people get swallowed up. It'd be really interesting to see how the next two events, like the handstand walk and snatch, hold up.
Yeah.
Just because of the little bit broader capacity that we saw from the first two, but. I mean, there's some fun stories across the board here. Like obviously Emma Lawson, Alexis Raptis, Danielle Brandon. Like if you're like, oh, okay, all of these 3 women are in the top 4, you'd be like, okay, that seems about right. None of, the lowest finish by any of them was an 11th by Alexis on the first one, but we saw a lot of people jump up and people we maybe didn't recognize perform well in test one over the last couple of weeks. But Paige Semenza, incredibly consistent, having an excellent weekend. Sitting right on their heels. Obviously you mentioned Erica Folo, the WWE tryout. As soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's going to put a smile on Sean's face. And, Carolyn Stanley hoping to go back for a sophomore season. Lydia Fish, former teenage competitor, 20 years old, looks like she could be another young athlete that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Fee doing a good job of managing the damage control type events. I thought 13th in that first event was great for her.
Yeah.
Haley bouncing back. This almost felt like in 2022 when Haley won the bike event. She struggled, and then we had the back-to-back sprint and shoulder to overhead event. She wins one, struggles with one, and then she has kind of this up and down trio of events, but overall in a solid position. And I think she could, if you look at the next 3 events, I think they could follow a similar suit. Like I think the snatch event is something that you have circled that she's going to have to do damage control on. I think where it benefits her early on is that she's pretty good at moving the sub-maximal loads relative to what her 1 rep max type strength is. It just looked like maybe she was a little beat up from the front squats in that first one. But yeah, I think we're gonna have a fun race. Annika Greer deserves a ton of credit of bouncing back from that 34th.
throughout the day, put up some really solid times that were a couple times top 5. I think one was top 5, and she will now be, I think, in heat 3 tomorrow. And that heat's going to matter because, taking 11 people. So she'll have a chance to now, see the target on the floor with her.
Yeah. And it's going to put a big imperative on that. I saw that first event, right? Like the rowing and handstand walk.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that the 2 women on the bubble there, Haley Adams and Brooke Wells, tremendous on their hands. Yeah. Excellent handstand walkers. Haley really good on the rowing machine. I think Brooke is better than she gets credit for on those movements. So the women trying to chase them are going to have to take some chances for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Let's look at the team leaderboard because there were some exciting moments there in the finish. Peak 360 CrossFit, they had a clinch going into the final event. They win 4 of the 5 events. Mm-hmm. CrossFit Mayhem, they're going to finish in second place. CrossFit 1124, they had a good finish. They took 3rd in the final event. 8th Day CrossFit takes 4th. CrossFit Reignited, they're going to the games, finishing in 5th. Ocean State CrossFit Surge, they had an event win in event 4 to start the day. Took 16th in the final event, but it was enough for them to hang on. CrossFit Somos Mayhem. Now, they were the team coming in that had to hang on to one of those final qualifying spots. They were in 8th. Training Think Tank CrossFit Endure, they wind up in 8th. They're the last team in. And if you don't know the story, Tommy alluded to it. They, after day 1 of competition, realized that they had gotten credit for a lift that one of their athletes did not complete. The score officially said 245, but she lifted 235. They turned themselves in on that. The score adjustment was made, and Adrian Bosman told us the story. He's like, now they're 2 points out because they were honest. That was going into that final event, but they wound up doing enough to get in. And I thought maybe they hadn't, because they got passed at the end by Somos Mayhem, and I thought that was going to be enough because Levy's Mayhem, that winds up in 9th with 331 points, they had a really sizable cushion on both Endure and Mayhem, but they wind up taking 17th in the event. They go from a qualifying spot to out of one. It was an exciting finish for the team competition there.
Yeah, the 2 points out because of that, it cost them almost 10 points, right? They dropped from a clean second into that event to 4th. I think it's actually 6 points. But the 2 point gap is what's easy to hone in on. But then both of those teams, crossed fairly early. And then you look around on the floor and you're like, oh, okay, we're at the point where like Milford Concord Black and Pro One, who had solid showings in the earlier heat, like their times are starting to factor in. And you realize like, oh, Levis Mayhem is still on the floor, and they're about a minute or so behind. Mm-hmm. And it just becomes that like quick math game. Like, it's a 26 point gap coming in. Like, is that enough? Right. With this 3 points per placement separation scale. And obviously it's tough for CrossFit Levis, but at the same time, you're like, man, there's some poetic justice with, Training Think Tank CrossFit Endure, like turning themselves in, doing the right thing and making it back as a result. And I think they were actually, I want to say they were the bubble team last year. So let me pull it up. I got it right.
Yeah. And when we had a great shot of them after they crossed the finish line, and you could tell on their faces, they thought they had lost, that they were out, but they had, and I thought they were too, not having the final results in front of me of where Levy's had finished, because again, you look at that margin, you're like, okay, well, as long as they stay close to these other 2 teams, they should be okay. But they wound up getting some help from some of the prior heats, did Endure, and that's why they're going. Mm-hmm. So, all right, well, we're going to have an exciting final day with the individuals, as they have 3 events remaining in the East. We'll quickly just take a look at the other semifinals going on as well. The first one going on in Africa, and there's 1 spot available there for individuals, correct? 1 team, or are they sending 1 each?
Yep, one each. Train Syndicate did make it. They were I think they were maybe one of the last teams in, but
Yeah.
they made it last year.
So on the women's side, it's Gilmari Reinecki. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. 2 firsts and a sixth for her. She has a 15-point lead on Gemma Rader. And then Christina Lividatakis sits in third place with 258 points. So that's where the women stand in Africa. And then we'll switch over to the men. Ruan Potgeider.
Yeah. I know there's a fancy way to say it.
Right. I apologize for if I'm butchering that. But he's in first place with 282 points. Josh Kernot is in second with 264. Then Keelan Henry sits in third. But again, 3 events remaining, 1 spot up for grabs, 18 points separate first from second, and still plenty of guys here in contention. And then the team competition is over there, and it's going to be CrossFit Tiger Valley Relentless, as they have every finish of second or better. They win 3 events. The other 2 they finish second in the other 2 events. So dominant performance from them.
But they're only 4 points back. They're only 4 points ahead of, and this is the best team name so far: CrossFit Humble Hungry Driven Team Quest Tiger Fit.
Yeah, only a 4-point win, but man, they win. The CrossFit Humble Hungry Driven Team Quest Tiger Fit certainly, I think, wins the competition for longest name.
I just want.
How do you fit that on a jersey?
I kind of want them to make the games just so the Larry and Mike and all those guys have to say that.
Well,
like
it's going to be. Yep. Good luck. CrossFit Tiger Valley Relentless is the team that earns the spot there. So we go over to South America, and it's 2 spots for individuals. And we start with, correct?
For South America?
Yes.
For individuals, get 3 each.
They do. Okay, so that's right. They earned 1. So we'll start on the women's side. Victoria Campos is your leader, followed by Julia Cato. 276 points for Campos, and then 261 for Cato. And then Andrea Pinheiro is in third with 252 points. Emily Andrade and Barbara Caravello are 4th and 5th, but they got some ground to make up, but still 3 events to go there. And then for the men, it is Bruno Marins. And when you look at that really fast, it looks like Bruno Mars. I'm like, wow, that guy's fit too. But he's got 288 points. Guy Majeros is 12 points back in second place. Callian Souza currently sits in third, but he's only 6 points up on Benjamin Gutierrez. Kaike Thurveni is in 5th with 228 points. So 3 events to go still for those individuals as well. But what, other than what we watched earlier, and we're talking about the no reps there with that event, but what stood out to you the most today?
It was hard to ignore, obviously. Like it was hard to ignore just the way Tia commands the screen when she competes.
It's like she never left.
Yeah. I really excited about this men's race. Like between Dallin, Jason, Jeff, and Roman, like I think for this men's race, this is really just the appetizer, right? I look like obviously Roman, Jeff, and Dallin were all top 5 at the games last year, but I think Hopper's going to have a pretty solid bounce back year. I think I want to see like this third day and final day of semifinals, especially for the men. This feels like a games day, right? You have 3 events spread out throughout the day. You have a heavy lift. It feels very much almost like a Saturday or Friday at the games, where it's like, hey, you're going to have a heavy lift event. It's going to be really exciting. You have a little handstand walk one, really simple. Let's go. And then let's just burn it down in that finale. I think the finale is going to be awesome.
Sorry.
I think you look at like the leg strength and grit that you have between those 4, particularly that I just mentioned, in that I think we're going to see.
Why is
it? What's good?
Sorry.
It's all good.
I think she's cute.
Who is that?
It's my wife.
Oh,
so I'll call her back faster. So
I just think we're gonna get just a barn burner of a final event between all the top guys on the men's side. I mean, the question becomes, does Tia win all of them? Right?
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, I think this next one is probably the only one she has a chance of losing, given that Danielle Brandon's in there, that Haley Adams.
Yep.
But other than that, I don't see her dropping an event to anybody right now, as dominant as she has looked. And I think for me, the best moment of the day was Austin Hatfield. I just had fun watching that kid.
Yeah,
that kid win an event.
His win in the second one was awesome.
That was fun to watch. But it felt good today on site. The crowd was into it. I thought there was some good energy in the building. Events were exciting, had good finishes across all the divisions, and really looking forward to tomorrow to really just shining the spotlight solely on the individuals, because as you mentioned, that men's race is going to be a lot of fun.
Did they have you in the same spot?
We were up pretty high.
Yeah.
So I think we were higher than we usually have been. Maybe not. I can't remember. We were up towards the tippy top.
I want to say the last time they created that little platform up near like the top.
That's the same thing. Yeah. So it is the same one. But it's a great venue. Like this is like we talked last week. This is the kind of market and the venue size that you need to have these semifinals in. We've had people from Montreal showed up. People have been traveling. I've got to meet some people who have driven in from states that are really close to Tennessee, and everyone seems to be having a good time. And the Wilson Pack and the Syndicate Crown crew, they know how to run a good event, and it's showing right now. So tomorrow will be a lot of fun. We'll start at 9 a.m. Eastern time with Heat 1 for the women in event number 4. And we'll see.
Final day of semifinals. The final day of semifinals.
I know, right? It seems like we just started.
Yeah. I don't. What do you think of the Peak 360 team? Do you think? I mean, they look as good as just as good as any other team, but it's hard to say, because like some of their events, like the first event was slower than a bunch of the other top teams, and it's really hard until you put them in the pressure cooker of the games. But
I mean, I think it's still between them and Invictus in my book, and that team from Oceania certainly could be in the mix. But just given the experience that Invictus has behind them, I know Chandler's new to the team competition, but just the pedigree that gym has with all their teams, you probably have to give them a little bit of an advantage. But I was really impressed with Peak 360. That a team that has come together that quickly. That they have a lot of team experience as well with Richter and Moroccanyo. I don't think Matilda Garnis has been on a team before. I could be wrong.
She's been on a team before, but I don't know if she went to the games.
Yeah, and then Noah. The way that the four of them have really kind of gelled into one cohesive unit has been impressive. But
I think
Fort Worth.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if we swim this year at the games, because I think that affects the team competition pretty heavily.
Sure.
But
All right. Well, we'll be back with you tomorrow to wrap everything up. Just wanted to get a quick update and really go over those no reps, because I was confused about that. I think as like a lot of people were, but that was 2 really good calls and 1 missed one.
Yeah. Shout out 8th Day CrossFit making again. That I know they were an earlier heat on the first day. So yeah. Big jump.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this special edition. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Thanks for watching. Enjoy tomorrow. I know it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I'm going to get some food and some shut-eye here and get ready for a big day. So, of Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Take care of each other. Be better. And we'll talk to you guys next time.